The unassuming prodigy. The Galactic Research Station Epsilon hung in space like a shimmering jewel, its sleek silver form rotating slowly against the backdrop of countless stars. Inside, beings from 100 different worlds worked tirelessly, pushing the boundaries of science and knowledge. But in the cramped maintenance corridors that snaked through the station's infrastructure, Maya Chen worked alone. Maya's nimble fingers danced across the control panel of a malfunctioning waste recycler, her dark eyes narrowed in concentration. At first glance, she appeared unremarkable, petite, with short black hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, and the standard grey jumpsuit of station maintenance personnel. But behind her calm exterior, Maya's mind whirred with activity, processing information at a rate that would have astounded even the most advanced AI. As she worked, Maya couldn't help but overhear the excited chatter from the nearby research lab. The station's intercom system crackled to life, announcing the arrival of Professor Zixlerian, a renowned Centaurian mathematician. "Attention all personnel," the computerized voice intoned. "Professor Zixlerian will be presenting his latest findings on transdimensional calculus in Lecture Hall A in 1 hour. All interested parties are welcome to attend." Maya's hand paused over the recycler's controls, a flicker of interest crossing her face. She had always been fascinated by mathematics, devouring any information she could find on the subject. But her position as a maintenance worker meant she was rarely invited to such prestigious events. With a small sigh, Maya returned her attention to the task at hand. She had a job to do, after all. As she delved deeper into the recycler's systems, her mind began to wander, equations and formulas dancing through her thoughts. Hours passed, and Maya found herself working late into the station's night cycle. The corridors were quiet, most of the researchers and staff having retired to their quarters. As she made her final rounds, checking the station's vital systems, Maya's path took her past Lecture Hall A. The door was ajar, and a sliver of light spilled out into the darkened hallway. Unable to resist her curiosity, Maya peered inside. The room was empty save for a solitary figure standing at the front, muttering to himself as he scribbled furiously on a large holographic display. It was Professor Zixlerian, his forearms moving in a blur as he worked through a complex series of equations. Maya's eyes widened as she took in the intricate mathematical formulas covering the display. Despite never having studied transdimensional calculus formally, she found herself understanding the concepts with startling clarity. As she watched, Maya noticed something that made her breath catch in her throat. There, in the middle of a particularly dense cluster of symbols, was an error. It was subtle, the kind of mistake that could easily go unnoticed even by experts in the field. But to Maya's uniquely gifted mind, it stood out like a beacon. For a moment, she hesitated. It wasn't her place to correct a renowned professor, especially one she had never met. But the need to set things right, to perfect the beautiful symmetry of the equations, overwhelmed her caution. "Excuse me, Professor," Maya said softly, stepping into the room. "I couldn't help but notice there's a small error in your calculations." Professor Zixlerian turned, his large, multifaceted eyes blinking in surprise. He regarded Maya with a mixture of confusion and amusement. "And who might you be?" he asked, his voice carrying the musical lilt characteristic of Centaurians. Maya swallowed hard, suddenly aware of how out of place she must look. "I'm Maya Chen, sir. I work in station maintenance." The professor's expression shifted to one of barely concealed disdain. "I see. And you believe you found an error in my work? Work that has taken me decades to perfect." Gathering her courage, Maya nodded. "Yes, sir. In the third line of the quantum flux equation, the coefficient should be negative, not positive. It changes the entire outcome of the calculation." For a long moment, Professor Zixlerian stared at her, his antenna twitching slightly. Then, with a dismissive wave of one of his hands, he turned back to the display. "Impossible. You must be mistaken. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have important work to continue." Maya felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment, but she couldn't let it go. The error nagged at her like an itch she couldn't scratch. "Please, Professor, just take a look. If I'm wrong, I'll leave immediately and never bother you again." With an exasperated sigh, Zixlarian turned back to the equations. His eyes scanned the lines of symbols, following Maya's indication. As he reached the point she had mentioned, his antenna suddenly stood straight up, quivering with excitement or shock. Maya couldn't tell which. This is impossible," the professor muttered, more to himself than to Maya. He input a series of commands into the holographic display, running a simulation based on the corrected equation. The results flashed across the screen, and Zixlarian's eyes widened even further. "You're right," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But how? How could you possibly have seen this? Even I didn't catch it, and I've been working on this theory for years." Maya shrugged, uncomfortable with the sudden attention. "I just see patterns, I guess. Numbers have always made sense to me." Professor Zixlarian turned to face her fully, his earlier disdain replaced by intense curiosity. "Tell me, Maya Chen, what is your background in mathematics?" "I don't really have one," Maya admitted. "I mean, I studied it in school, but I've never had any formal training beyond that. I just read a lot in my spare time." The professor's antenna twitched rapidly, a sign of deep thought among Centaurians. "Remarkable. Simply remarkable. My dear, do you realize what you've done? This correction, it doesn't just fix an error. It opens up entirely new avenues of research. It could revolutionize our understanding of transdimensional physics." Maya's eyes widened. "Really? I didn't realize it was that significant." "Oh, it is," Zixlarian assured her, his voice growing more excited by the moment. "Tell me, what do you know about the Galactic Mathematics Challenge?" Maya shook her head. "I'm afraid I've never heard of it." The professor's eyes gleamed with an almost manic light. "It's the most prestigious mathematical competition in the known universe. Beings from every corner of the galaxy compete to solve problems that have stumped our greatest minds for centuries. And this year's challenge, well, let's just say it's particularly daunting." He gestured to a different section of the holographic display, bringing up a new set of equations. "This is the problem that was announced just last week. No one has even come close to solving it yet. But with your unique insight, Maya Chen, I believe you might have a chance." Maya stared at the new equations, her mind already beginning to process the intricate patterns and relationships between the symbols. It was beautiful, in a way that only mathematics could be. But it was also terrifying. The implications of what the professor was suggesting were almost too much to comprehend. I don't know," Maya said hesitantly. "I'm just a maintenance worker. I'm not sure I'm qualified for something like this." Professor Zixlarian placed one of his hands gently on Maya's shoulder. "My dear, after what I've just witnessed, I believe you may be the most qualified being in this entire station, perhaps in this entire sector of the galaxy." Maya's mind raced. This was so far beyond anything she had ever imagined for herself. She had always known she was good with numbers, but this was something else entirely. It was an opportunity to step out of the shadows, to use her gift in a way that could change the course of scientific history. But it was also terrifying. If she agreed to this, her quiet life would be over. She would be thrust into a spotlight she had never sought, competing against the greatest minds in the galaxy. And if she failed, the disappointment would be crushing. As if sensing her hesitation, Professor Zixlarian spoke again, his voice gentle but filled with conviction. "Maya, I understand this is overwhelming, but gifts like yours come along once in a generation. If that, you have a chance to make a real difference, to push the boundaries of our understanding in ways we can scarcely imagine." Maya took a deep breath, her gaze moving from the complex equations on the display to the professor's earnest face. In that moment, she made a decision that would change not only her life, but the course of galactic history. "All right," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "I'll do it. I'll take on the Galactic Mathematics Challenge." Professor Zixlarian's antenna quivered with excitement. "Excellent. We'll start your training immediately." By the time the competition begins, you'll be more than ready. As Maya left the lecture hall that night, her mind buzzing with equations and possibilities, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just set foot on a path from which there was no turning back. Little did she know just how right she was, or how her decision would soon shake the very foundations of the galactic scientific community. For in the days and weeks to come, as news of the unassuming human maintenance worker with an extraordinary gift for mathematics began to spread, Maya Chen would find herself at the center of a storm that would challenge not only her intellect, but her very understanding of her place in the universe. The stage was set, the players were taking their positions, and the greatest mathematical showdown in galactic history was about to begin. And at the heart of it all was Maya Chen, the unlikely prodigy who was about to change everything. The impossible challenge. The news of Maya Chen's extraordinary mathematical ability spread through the Galactic Research Station Epsilon like wildfire. Within days, the once invisible maintenance worker had become the center of attention, her every move watched with a mixture of curiosity, awe, and in some cases, suspicion. Maya found the sudden shift disorienting. Where once she had moved through the station's corridors unnoticed, now she couldn't take a step without feeling the weight of countless eyes upon her. Researchers who had previously ignored her existence now sought her out, peppering her with questions about complex theorems and abstract concepts. But none of this compared to the intensity of her training with Professor Zixilarian. The Centaurian mathematician had taken it upon himself to prepare Maya for the Galactic Mathematics Challenge, and his methods were as unorthodox as they were demanding. Faster, Maya, Zixilarian urged, his forearms manipulating holographic projections of multidimensional equations at a dizzying pace. The challenge won't wait for you to catch your breath. Maya's fingers flew across her own holographic interface, her mind racing to keep up with the flood of information. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she pushed herself to the limits of her considerable intellect. "I'm trying," she gasped, her eyes never leaving the swirling symbols before her. "But this is unlike anything I've ever encountered before." Zixilarian's antenna twitched with a mixture of frustration and excitement. "Of course it is, that's the point. The Galactic Mathematics Challenge isn't about solving equations you already know. It's about pushing the boundaries of what's possible, about seeing connections that no one else can see." As the days turned into weeks, Maya found herself torn between exhilaration and exhaustion. The thrill of delving into mathematical concepts she had never dreamed existed was intoxicating. But the pressure of the looming challenge, coupled with the constant scrutiny from the station's inhabitants, began to take its toll. One evening, as Maya sat alone in the small quarters she had been assigned, a significant upgrade from her previous maintenance closet, she found herself questioning everything. Was she really cut out for this? What if she failed spectacularly, proving to everyone that she was nothing more than a fluke, a maintenance worker who had gotten lucky once? A soft chime interrupted her spiraling thoughts. It was a message from Dr. Ilara Voss, one of the few humans on the station's senior research staff. Maya had only met her briefly, but something about the older woman's calm demeanor had immediately put her at ease. "Maya," the message read, "I hope I'm not intruding, but I wondered if you might like to join me for a cup of tea. Sometimes it helps to step back from the equations for a moment." Grateful for the distraction, Maya accepted the invitation. She found Dr. Voss in one of the station's observation lounges, a sprawling space with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of the surrounding star field. "Ah, there you are," Dr. Voss said warmly, gesturing to a seat across from her. "I thought you might need a break from all the excitement." Maya sank into the offered chair, accepting a steaming cup of fragrant tea. "Thank you," she said softly. I'm not sure I'm handling all of this very well." Dr. Voss nodded sympathetically. "It's a lot to take in, isn't it? One day you're going about your normal routine, and the next, you're thrust into the spotlight as the next great hope of galactic mathematics." "Exactly," Maya agreed, relieved that someone understood. "Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for the opportunity. It's just overwhelming." Dr. Voss finished for her. Believe me, I understand. But Maya, what you need to remember is that you're not alone in this. Yes, you have an extraordinary gift, but that doesn't mean you have to carry the weight of the entire galaxy on your shoulders. As they talked, Maya felt some of the tension she had been carrying start to ease. Dr. Voss shared stories of her own struggles in the scientific community, of the challenges she had faced as a human in a field dominated by species with far more advanced technology and longer lifespans. The key, Dr. Voss said, her eyes twinkling, is to remember that being human isn't a disadvantage. It's our greatest strength. We may not live as long as some species, or have the computational power of others, but we have something that many of them lack: imagination, intuition, and the ability to make creative leaps that defy logic. Maya nodded slowly, beginning to understand. So you're saying I shouldn't try to outthink the other competitors, but to out-imagine them? Precisely, Dr. Voss said with a smile. Use that uniquely human perspective of yours. That's what will set you apart. Feeling reinvigorated, Maya threw herself back into her training with renewed vigor. The days flew by, and before she knew it, the day of the Galactic Mathematics Challenge had arrived. The station's largest auditorium had been transformed for the event. Holographic displays lined the walls, ready to broadcast the proceedings to trillions of beings across the galaxy. In the center of the room stood a circle of podiums, each equipped with the most advanced computational interfaces available. As Maya took her place at one of the podiums, she couldn't help but feel small. Around her stood some of the most brilliant minds in the galaxy, towering Algorians with their crystalline thought matrices, ethereal quantum collective beings that existed in a state of perpetual probability, and even a few AI constructs of unimaginable processing power. Professor Zixlarian caught her eye from the audience, giving her an encouraging nod. Dr. Voss was there too, her calm presence a reassuring anchor in the sea of alien faces. A hush fell over the crowd as the head judge, a being of pure energy contained within a shimmering force field, floated to the center of the circle. Esteemed competitors, the judge's voice resonated through the room. Welcome to the 527th Galactic Mathematics Challenge. Today, you will face a problem that has confounded our greatest minds for millennia. A problem that, if solved, could revolutionize our understanding of the very fabric of reality. Maya's heart raced as the judge continued. Your task is this: to derive a unified equation that explains the interaction between dark matter, dark energy, and the quantum foam of space-time itself. This equation, if found, would allow us to predict and potentially manipulate the expansion and contraction of the universe on a scale never before imagined. A collective gasp went through the audience. Even among the competitors, there were murmurs of disbelief. This wasn't just a difficult problem, it was one that many had long thought to be impossible. You will have 12 standard galactic hours to work on your solutions, the judge announced. May the greatest mind prevail. Begin. As the holographic displays before each podium flickered to life, Maya took a deep breath. The magnitude of the challenge before her was staggering. But as she looked at the swirling equations and datasets, something strange began to happen. The numbers and symbols seemed to dance before her eyes, rearranging themselves in patterns that felt almost familiar. It was as if the universe itself was whispering its secrets to her, revealing connections that had always been there, hidden just beneath the surface of conventional mathematics. Maya's fingers flew across her interface, her mind working at a pace that surprised even her. She barely noticed the hours slipping by, lost in a world of pure mathematics and cosmic wonder. Around her, the other competitors worked with equal intensity. The Algorians' crystalline structures pulsed with complex calculations, while the quantum collectives flickered in and out of existence, exploring countless probabilistic solutions simultaneously. But Maya paid them no mind. She was following a thread of logic that felt both impossibly complex and startlingly simple. It was as if she was weaving together strands of dark matter and dark energy, using the quantum foam as a framework to create a tapestry of universal understanding. As the final minutes of the challenge ticked away, Maya looked up for the first time in hours. The equation before her was unlike anything she had ever seen, a breathtaking blend of elegant simplicity and mind-bending complexity. With trembling fingers, she submitted her solution just as the time ran out. The judge floated to the center of the room once more. The challenge is complete. Our panel will now review the submitted solutions. An agonizing silence fell over the auditorium as the judges deliberated. Maya could feel her heart pounding in her chest, a mix of exhaustion and nervous anticipation washing over her. After what felt like an eternity, the head judge spoke again. "We have reviewed the submissions, and we have come to a unanimous decision." The tension in the room was palpable. The winner of the 527th Galactic Mathematics Challenge is Maya Chen of Earth. For a moment, Maya couldn't process what she had heard. It wasn't until the auditorium erupted in a cacophony of cheers, gasps, and exclamations in 100 different languages that the reality of her achievement began to sink in. She had done it. She, a former maintenance worker from a relatively unknown planet, had solved a problem that had stumped the greatest minds in the galaxy for thousands of years. As Professor Zixilarian and Dr. Voss rushed to congratulate her, Maya felt a strange mix of elation and trepidation. She had won the challenge, yes, but something told her that this was only the beginning. For in unlocking the secrets of dark matter, dark energy, and the quantum nature of spacetime, Maya Chen had unknowingly set in motion a chain of events that would shake the very foundations of the galaxy and put her at the center of a conflict beyond anything she could have imagined. The Galactic Mathematics Challenge was over, but Maya's true test was just beginning. Alien intrigue. The aftermath of Maya's victory in the Galactic Mathematics Challenge was nothing short of chaos. The auditorium, moments ago a scene of shocked silence, now buzzed with a frenzy of activity. Beings from across the galaxy clamored to get closer to the unassuming human who had just rewritten the laws of physics. Maya stood at her podium, her mind still reeling from what she had accomplished. The elegance of the solution she had found still danced before her eyes, a beautiful tapestry of mathematics that seemed to sing the secrets of the universe. As the crowd pressed in, Maya felt a gentle but firm hand on her shoulder. It was Dr. Voss, her eyes shining with pride and concern. "Come on," she said softly. "Let's get you out of here." With Professor Zixilarian forming a protective barrier with his 4 arms, they managed to guide Maya through the throng and into a small antechamber off the main auditorium. As the door sealed behind them, cutting off the din of the crowd, Maya let out a shaky breath. I can't believe it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Did that really just happen?" Dr. Voss smiled warmly. "It did indeed, my dear. You've just changed the course of galactic science." Professor Zixilarian's antennae were vibrating with excitement. "Changed? My dear Dr. Voss, that's putting it mildly. Maya has revolutionized our understanding of the universe. The implications of her equation, they're staggering." As the 2 scientists began to discuss the potential applications of Maya's discovery, a new voice cut through the room, sharp and authoritative. "I'm afraid this discussion will have to wait." They turned to see a tall, imposing figure standing in the doorway. It was Admiral Genva, the Arcturian head of Galactic Security. His iridescent scales shimmered in the low light, and his 4 eyes fixed on Maya with an intensity that made her want to shrink into herself. "Miss Chen," the Admiral said, his voice a low rumble, "I'm going to have to ask you to come with me." Dr. Voss stepped forward, placing herself between Maya and the Admiral. "Now wait just a moment. On what grounds?" Admiral Genva's upper set of eyes narrowed. "On the grounds of galactic security, Dr. Voss. The equation Miss Chen has discovered, in the wrong hands, it could be catastrophic." Maya's mind raced. She had been so caught up in the beauty of the mathematics, she hadn't stopped to consider the practical implications. If her equation could truly predict and manipulate the expansion of the universe, "You can't just take her. Professor Zixlerian protested, his normally musical voice taking on a harsh edge. She's not some weapon to be locked away. She's a scientist, a mathematician. The Admiral's lower eyes blinked slowly. I'm afraid you don't understand the gravity of the situation. This goes beyond mere academic interest. The Galactic Council has already convened an emergency session. They're demanding answers. Maya found her voice at last. Answers? About what? Admiral Genva turned his gaze back to her. About how a human, with no formal training and limited access to advanced technology, managed to solve a problem that has eluded the brightest minds in the galaxy for millennia. Some are suggesting outside influence. The implication hung heavy in the air. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. You think I cheated? That's absurd. Perhaps the Admiral conceded, but there are those who find it hard to believe that a species as young as humanity could produce a mind capable of such a feat. The quantum collectives, in particular, are calling for a full investigation. Dr. Voss's eyes flashed with anger. This is outrageous. Maya solved the problem fair and square. You all saw it happen. Nevertheless, Admiral Genva said, his tone leaving no room for argument, Miss Chen will need to come with me. For her own protection, if nothing else. News of her discovery is already spreading across the galaxy. There are those who would go to great lengths to get their hands on that equation. Maya's head was spinning. Just hours ago, her biggest concern had been fixing malfunctioning recycling units. Now, she was at the center of a galactic controversy, with the fate of her discovery, and possibly her freedom, hanging in the balance. As if sensing her distress, Dr. Voss turned to her, her expression softening. Maya, listen to me. You don't have to go anywhere you don't want to. We can fight this. But even as she said it, Maya could see the doubt in her eyes. They were on a space station, light years from Earth. The Galactic Council's authority here was absolute. Maya took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. It's okay, Dr. Voss. I'll go. I have nothing to hide. And if my equation is as important as you all say it is, then I have a responsibility to explain it, to help people understand it. Admiral Genva nodded approvingly. A wise decision, Ms. Chen. I assure you, you will be treated with the utmost respect. As Maya prepared to leave with the Admiral, Professor Zixlerian caught her arm. We won't abandon you, Maya, he said, his voice low and urgent. Whatever happens, remember, your mind is your greatest weapon. Use it. With a final look at her mentors, Maya followed Admiral Genva out of the room. As they walked through the corridors of the station, she could feel the weight of countless eyes upon her. News of her achievement, and the controversies surrounding it, had clearly spread quickly. They boarded a sleek diplomatic shuttle, its interior far more luxurious than anything Maya had ever experienced. As the ship detached from the station and streaked into open space, Maya pressed her hand against the cool glass of the viewport. The stars blurred into streaks of light as they entered hyperspace, and Maya felt a pang of uncertainty. She was leaving behind everything she had ever known, hurtling towards a future she couldn't begin to predict. But as she watched the cosmic tapestry unfold before her, Maya's mind began to race with possibilities. The equation she had discovered, it wasn't just a solution to an old problem. It was a key, unlocking doors to realms of science and understanding that no one had ever dreamed possible. If she could just make them understand, make them see what she saw. As the shuttle hurtled through the void, carrying her towards an uncertain fate, Maya Chen began to plan. She might be alone, surrounded by aliens who doubted her abilities and feared her discovery. But she had her mind, the most powerful tool in the universe. And she was determined to use it. Little did Maya know that far across the galaxy, in the shadows of forgotten worlds and the depths of quantum realms, forces were already moving. Her equation had sent ripples through the fabric of reality itself, awakening ancient powers and setting in motion events that would reshape the very nature of existence. The game was changing, the stakes rising higher than anyone could have imagined, and at the center of it all was Maya Chen, the unlikely human prodigy who had cracked the code of the cosmos. As the shuttle disappeared into the depths of space, the greatest adventure in the history of the galaxy was just beginning. The pursuit. The Galactic Council chambers were a marvel of alien architecture, a vast amphitheater carved from a single massive crystal. Tiered seating rose in concentric circles, each level occupied by representatives from hundreds of different species. At the center stood a raised dais, upon which Maya Chen now found herself, feeling very small indeed. Admiral Genva stood beside her, his scaled form towering over her diminutive human frame. Before them, the council members murmured amongst themselves, their varied forms creating a living tapestry of galactic diversity. The lead counselor, a being of pure energy contained within an ornate force field, floated forward. When it spoke, its voice resonated through the chamber like the toll of a cosmic bell. "Maya Chen of Earth," it intoned, "you stand before us accused of violating the fundamental laws of galactic progression. Your solution to the universe's grand equation far exceeds the expected capabilities of your species. How do you answer these charges?" Maya took a deep breath, steeling herself. This was her moment to make them understand. "Honored counselors," she began, her voice steady despite her racing heart, "I understand your concerns, but I assure you, my solution came from nothing more than my own mind and the unique way humans perceive the universe." A ripple of skepticism passed through the assembly. A quantum collective representative, its form a shimmering cloud of possibilities, pulsed forward. "Impossible," it stated, its voice a chorus of probabilities. "We have calculated the odds. A human mind simply cannot contain the processing power required for such a feat." Maya felt a flicker of frustration. "With all due respect," she countered, "you're making a fundamental error in your calculations. You're assuming that raw processing power is the only path to understanding. But the human mind doesn't work like your quantum computers. We make intuitive leaps. We see patterns where others see only chaos." She gestured to the holographic display of her equation, which hovered in the center of the chamber. "Look at the elegance of the solution. It's not about brute force calculations. It's about seeing the underlying symmetry of the universe." As Maya began to explain her thought process, breaking down the complex mathematics into understandable concepts, she noticed a change in the chamber. The skepticism in the air began to shift, replaced by a growing sense of wonder. Even Admiral Genva, who had been watching her with suspicion, seemed captivated by her explanation. His 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession, a sign of deep thought among Arcturians. But just as Maya felt she was making headway, a new voice cut through the chamber. "This is all very fascinating," it said, its tone dripping with sarcasm, "but it doesn't address the real issue at hand." All eyes turned to the source of the interruption. It was Dr. Six, a Saganian scientist known for his controversial theories on species superiority. His gelatinous form quivered with barely contained anger. "The real question," Dr. Six continued, "is not how she solved the equation, but what we're going to do about it now that she has. This human has stumbled upon knowledge that could reshape the very fabric of our reality. Can we truly trust such power in the hands of a species that still fights wars over crude oil?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Maya felt her heart sink. She had been so focused on proving her innocence, she hadn't considered the broader implications of her discovery. The lead counselor's energy form pulsed thoughtfully. Dr. Six raises a valid point. "Ms. Chen, your equation provides a roadmap to manipulating the fundamental forces of the universe. In the wrong hands, it could be used to collapse entire galaxies, to rewrite the laws of physics themselves." Maya's mind raced. She hadn't thought of her elegant mathematical solution as a potential weapon, but now, seeing the fear in the eyes, or equivalent sensory organs, of the council members, she realized the terrifying potential of what she had discovered. I never intended," she began, but her words were cut short by a sudden commotion at the entrance to the chamber. A group of beings burst in, their forms obscured by shimmering cloaks that seemed to bend light around them. At their head was a familiar face, Professor Zixlarian. "Stop," the Centaurian mathematician cried out. "You're making a terrible mistake." Admiral Genva moved to intercept them, but Zixlarian was too quick. He reached Maya's side, placing one of his 4 hands protectively on her shoulder. "Maya is not a threat," Zixlarian declared, his voice ringing through the chamber. "She's our greatest hope. Her equation doesn't just explain the universe, it offers us a chance to save it." The chamber erupted into chaos. Council members shouted questions and accusations, while security forces moved to surround Maya and Zixlarian. In the midst of the confusion, Maya felt a gentle tug on her arm. It was one of Zixlarian's companions, a small, reptilian being with eyes that seemed to look right through her. "We need to go," the being whispered urgently. "Now." Before Maya could respond, she felt a strange sensation wash over her. The world around her began to blur, the shouting voices fading into a distant hum. In a blink, the crystal chamber disappeared. Maya found herself in a dimly lit room, surrounded by humming machinery. Zixlarian and his companions materialized beside her, their cloaking devices powering down. What just happened?" Maya gasped, her head spinning from the sudden teleportation. Zixlarian's antenna twitched nervously. "I'm sorry for the abrupt extraction, my dear, but we had no choice." The council was about to make a grave error. The reptilian being who had whispered to her stepped forward, its scales shifting color to match the room around them. "Allow me to introduce myself. I am Zara of the Chameleon Collective. We are a group dedicated to preserving the balance of knowledge in the galaxy." Maya's mind was reeling. "I don't understand. Why did you bring me here? Where are we?" Zixlarian's eyes darted around the room. "We're on a cloaked ship, currently in orbit around a neutron star. It's one of the few places in the galaxy where we can hide from the Council's sensors." Zara nodded solemnly. "Maya, your equation has changed everything. There are forces at work in this galaxy, ancient, powerful forces that have been waiting for something like this. Your discovery has set events in motion that cannot be undone." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. What kind of forces? What events? Zixlarian and Zara exchanged a significant look. Finally, Zixlarian spoke, his voice heavy with the weight of secrets long kept. "Maya, what do you know about the origin of the universe?" As Maya opened her mouth to respond with the standard scientific theory, she suddenly realized that in light of her recent discovery, everything she thought she knew might be wrong. Zixlarian nodded, seeing the realization dawn on her face. "Exactly. Your equation doesn't just explain how the universe works now. It provides a glimpse into how it all began and how it might end." Zara's scales rippled with urgency. "And there are those who would use that knowledge to reshape reality itself, to set themselves up as gods of a new cosmic order." Maya's head was spinning. Gods? Cosmic orders? It all seemed so far removed from the elegant mathematics she had been working with. And yet, as she thought about the implications of her equation, she began to see the terrifying potential. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Zixlarian's antenna twitched with determination. "We run, we hide, and we work. Your equation is the key, Maya. Not just to understanding the universe, but to saving it." As the cloaked ship hummed to life around them, preparing to dive deeper into the unknown reaches of space, Maya Chen realized that her journey had only just begun. She had unlocked the secrets of the cosmos, and now the cosmos itself was calling her to action. The pursuit was on, not just for her, but for the very fate of reality itself. The greater threat. The cloaked ship glided silently through the vast emptiness of space, its advanced stealth technology rendering it invisible to even the most sophisticated detection systems. Inside, Maya Chen sat cross-legged on the floor of the ship's small observatory, surrounded by holographic projections of her universe-altering equation. Weeks had passed since her dramatic escape from the Galactic Council, and in that time, Maya had pushed her extraordinary mind to its limits. With guidance from Zixilarian and the enigmatic members of the Chimelian Collective, she had begun to unravel the deeper mysteries hidden within her mathematical breakthrough. "It's beautiful," Maya murmured, her eyes tracing the elegant lines of cosmic forces intertwining in the projection before her, "but also terrifying." Zara, the reptilian member of the collective, shifted her scales to a deep blue, reflecting Maya's mood. "Indeed, the power to reshape reality is a double-edged sword, as your people might say." Maya nodded absently, her mind already racing ahead to the next iteration of her calculations. As she worked, manipulating the holographic symbols with graceful gestures, a sudden realization struck her. Her hands froze mid-motion, her eyes widening. "Oh no," she whispered. Zixilarian, who had been monitoring her progress from a nearby console, turned sharply at her tone. "What is it, Maya? What have you found?" Maya's voice trembled as she spoke. "It's not just about reshaping reality. The equation, it predicts a cosmic event, a collision of realities." She manipulated the hologram, expanding it to fill the room. The others watched in stunned silence as the mathematical representation of the universe began to shift and warp, multiple layers of existence bleeding into one another. According to this, Maya explained, her voice gaining strength as she delved into the familiar territory of mathematical analysis, "Our universe is just one of many, and they're all converging. In less than a galactic year, the barriers between realities will collapse entirely." Zara's scales rippled with alarm. The consequences would be catastrophic. Entire galaxies could be annihilated in the cosmic upheaval. Zixilarian's antenna quivered thoughtfully. Unless someone could control the convergence, guide it. Maya nodded grimly. "Exactly. And I think that's what those ancient forces you mentioned are after. They don't want to just reshape our reality. They want to become the architects of a new multiverse." The implications hung heavy in the air. The pursuit of Maya and her equation wasn't just about galactic politics or scientific advancement. It was a race to determine the fate of all existence. As if on cue, the ship's alert system blared to life. A holographic display materialized in the center of the room, showing a massive fleet of ships dropping out of hyperspace nearby. "It's the Galactic Council," Zixilarian said, his voice tight with tension. "They found us." Maya's mind raced. They couldn't run, not with a fleet that size. And even if they could, where would they go? The collision of realities wasn't a threat they could simply hide from. In that moment, Maya made a decision that would alter the course of history across multiple universes. "We need to surrender," she said, her voice calm and determined. "What?" Zara exclaimed, her scales flashing a bright red in shock. "After everything we've done to keep you safe." Maya held up a hand, her eyes blazing with newfound purpose. Not to be captured, to warn them, to help them. The Council, the ancient forces, all of them, they're fighting over a prize that could destroy everything. We need to make them understand the real threat. Zixilarian studied her for a long moment, his alien features unreadable. Then, slowly, he nodded. "You're right. This is bigger than any one of us, bigger than any conflict between species or ideologies. This is about the survival of all realities." As the ship's systems registered hailing signals from the approaching fleet, Maya stood tall, her earlier uncertainty replaced by a steely resolve. She may not have asked for this responsibility, but she was uniquely positioned to face it. Her mind, her gift, had revealed the threat. Now it was up to her to find a solution. "Open a channel," she instructed the ship's AI. "I need to speak with Admiral Genva." The holographic display flickered, and then the imposing form of the Arcturian admiral appeared before them. His 4 eyes narrowed as he took in the scene. "Maya Chen," he rumbled, "you've led us on quite a chase." Maya stepped forward, her gaze unwavering. "Admiral, I apologize for the deception, but there's something you need to know. Something that changes everything." Over the next few minutes, Maya laid out her discovery, explaining the impending collision of realities and the catastrophic consequences it would bring. As she spoke, she could see the shock and disbelief in the Admiral's eyes slowly give way to grim understanding. This changes everything," Genda said when she had finished, echoing her own words. "The Council must be informed immediately." Maya nodded. "Yes, but not just the Council. Everyone needs to know. Every species, every civilization across the galaxy. We're going to need all the help we can get to face this threat." For a moment, the Admiral was silent, the weight of the situation clearly weighing on him. Then, to Maya's surprise, he straightened and saluted her. "Miss Chen, it seems we owe you an apology, and our gratitude. Will you consent to come aboard our flagship? We have much to discuss." As Maya prepared to board the Council ship, she felt a mix of trepidation and hope. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with dangers both known and unimaginable. But for the first time since this journey began, she felt like she was exactly where she needed to be. The collision of realities loomed on the horizon, a threat greater than anything the galaxy had ever faced. But Maya Chen, the unassuming human who had unlocked the secrets of the cosmos, was ready to face it head-on. As she stepped onto the Council ship, leaving behind the cloaked vessel that had been her haven, Maya knew that the greatest challenge of her life, and quite possibly the greatest challenge in the history of all realities, was just beginning. The universe, in all its infinite complexity, awaited her next move. Humanity's stand. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council's flagship was packed to capacity. Representatives from every known sentient species in the galaxy had gathered, their diverse forms creating a living mosaic of cosmic diversity. At the center of it all stood Maya Chen, the human mathematician who had become the fulcrum upon which the fate of multiple realities now balanced. Maya took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. She glanced to her side, where Admiral Genva stood stoically, his four eyes scanning the crowd. On her other side, Professor Zix Larian offered an encouraging nod, his antenna quivering with a mix of anxiety and excitement. "Are you ready?" Admiral Genva asked, his voice a low rumble. Maya nodded, "As ready as I'll ever be." With a gesture from the Admiral, the room fell silent. All eyes, sensory organs, and perception apparatuses turned towards Maya. She stepped forward, her voice clear and strong as she began to speak. "Distinguished representatives of the galaxy, I stand before you today not as a human, not as a mathematician, but as a harbinger of a truth that will shake the foundations of our very existence." Over the next hour, Maya laid out the situation in painstaking detail. She explained her equation, the implications it held, and the impending collision of realities that threatened to annihilate everything they knew. As she spoke, holographic displays materialized around her, illustrating the complex mathematics and mind-bending physics behind her words. "We stand at a crossroads," Maya concluded, her voice echoing through the silent hall. "The knowledge we now possess gives us the power to reshape reality itself. But it also burdens us with a responsibility greater than any we have ever known. We must use this knowledge not for power, not for control, but for survival, not just of our individual species or civilizations, but of all realities." As she finished speaking, the hall erupted into a cacophony of voices, each being trying to process the monumental information they had just received. Maya could see fear in many eyes, disbelief in others, and in some, a dangerous glint of ambition. An Algorian representative, its crystalline form pulsing with agitation, spoke up. "How can we trust that this human speaks the truth? For all we know, this could be an elaborate ploy by Earth to seize power in the galaxy." Before Maya could respond, a surprising voice came to her defense. It was Dr. Six, the Saganian scientist who had been one of her harshest critics in the earlier council meeting. "I was skeptical too," Dr. Six admitted, his gelatinous form rippling as he spoke. "But I've reviewed Ms. Chen's work. It's real, and it's as terrifying as it is brilliant. We don't have the luxury of doubt or interspecies squabbles. Not anymore." A murmur of agreement passed through the crowd. The quantum collective representative pulsed forward, its form a shimmering cloud of possibilities. The question then becomes, what do we do with this knowledge? How do we prevent the collapse of realities? Maya stepped forward again, her eyes shining with determination. We work together, every species, every civilization, pooling our knowledge and resources. We need to construct a device, a cosmic stabilizer, that can reinforce the barriers between realities and guide the convergence safely. She manipulated the holographic display, showing rough schematics of the proposed device. It will take everything we have. Technology from 100 worlds, power sources beyond anything we've ever built, and mathematics that push the boundaries of our understanding. But together, I believe we can do it. The next few hours were a flurry of discussion, debate, and planning. Gradually, a consensus began to form. The galaxy would unite, pooling its resources and knowledge in a desperate bid to save not just their universe, but all of reality. As the meeting drew to a close, Admiral Genva turned to Maya. "Miss Chen, the Council has reached a decision. We would like you to lead this effort. Your mind, your insight, will be crucial in the challenges ahead." Maya felt the weight of countless eyes upon her. This was more than she had ever dreamed of, more responsibility than she had ever imagined bearing. But as she looked around the room, at the diverse beings all united in a common cause, she knew there was only one answer she could give. "I accept," she said firmly, "but I have one condition. I want to return to Earth first. If we're going to save reality, we're going to need every brilliant mind we can get. And humanity, for all its flaws, has a knack for thinking outside the box. We might just see solutions that others miss." The Admiral nodded solemnly. "Agreed. We'll make course for Earth immediately." As the assembly dispersed, each representative heading off to begin preparations in their own sectors of the galaxy, Maya found a quiet moment to herself. She stood before a vast viewport, gazing out at the star-studded expanse of space. Professor Zixlerian approached, standing silently beside her for a moment before speaking. "You've come a long way from fixing recycling units, my dear." Maya chuckled softly. "I suppose I have. Sometimes I wonder if this is all a dream. If I'll wake up back in my maintenance closet, with nothing more exciting to look forward to than a malfunctioning waste processor." Zixlerian's antenna twitched in amusement. "If it is a dream, it's one the entire galaxy is sharing. You've given us all something we desperately needed, Maya: hope." As the flagship began its journey towards Earth, Maya felt a surge of emotions. Fear of the challenges ahead, certainly, awe at the vastness of the task before them. But overwhelmingly, she felt a sense of purpose, of rightness. She had unlocked the secrets of the cosmos, and now the cosmos itself was calling her to action. And she was ready to answer that call with all the ingenuity, creativity, and determination that humanity could muster. As Earth grew from a tiny blue dot to a shimmering sphere before them, Maya Chen, once an overlooked maintenance worker, now the linchpin in the greatest cooperative effort the galaxy had ever seen, allowed herself a small smile. The collision of realities was coming. The greatest threat any universe had ever faced loomed on the horizon, but humanity would face it head-on, standing tall alongside the myriad species of the galaxy. Together, they would fight for the future of all realities, and Maya Chen would lead the charge. The adventure was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning.